Astrology is one of the most common pseudosciences of the 21st century. According to the proponents of this movement, the location of celestial bodies at the moment of the birth of a person in some way affects the development of his personality and also influences his fate. The origin of this pseudoscience is closely related to the Sumerian Babylonian methodology, in which the heavenly bodies were associated with the gods. Later, this idea was borrowed by the Greeks and later by the Romans, thanks to which all planets of our solar system began to be called in honor of the ancient Roman gods. But longer before this, these beliefs spread throughout Europe and gave birth to a new science, astrology. Many medieval scientists devoted considerable time to this craft, which subsequently led to a significant simplification of astronomy. From now on, to obtain a prediction, complex mathematical calculations were required. So, there was that astrology that we know and hate. The main tool of astrology is a map of the starry sky, which are then analyzed to obtain predictions. There are two types of maps: a horoscope that shows all the celestial bodies visible from a certain point on the Earth and is used to obtain the prediction of the space associated with a given point, as well as the cosmogram. It reflects the relative arrangement of the bodies of the solar system at a certain point in time, but not their visibility from a particular point on the Earth's surface. Currently, science qualifies astrology as a pseudoscience and prejudice. The US National Science Foundation uses astrology as a reference pseudoscience in the evaluation system Science and Engineering Indicators. Encyclopedia Britannica classifies astrology as magical divination practices based on concepts incompatible with the scientific data. Some modern astrologers call astrology as a metaphorical symbolic language, in which the same utterance admits many different interpretations. We are children of the so-called progress and the science behind it and a scientific style of thinking. We tend to separate one from other. We have a lot of sciences that describe a diverse world from variety of aspects, but we cannot look at the world as a whole. If we will try to understand this pseudoscience, we can understand the following version. In astrology, the relative position of celestial bodies are taken into account, and their position relative to 12 units of the zodiac and 12 houses of the horoscope. In the Western astrology of modern times, for the construction of a horoscope, depending on the specific school, which includes itself one or another astrologer expects for the planet September, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, known in antiquity takes into account the position of Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, some large asteroids, and fictional points.
There's quite a lot of branches of astrology which combined can cover an entire life of a person. There are such branches as meteorological, which is used in order to predict weather, medical, used to find cases of disease, electional, which is used to find perfect time for some action, financial, which predict events on the financial market, horary which is used to find an answer to a question, and vocational that predicts future of a certain location. It may sound cool to be able to predict your entire life, but unfortunately, astrology is not the most trustworthy source of. Nowadays, astrology referred to as pseudoscience, and even National Scientific Foundation of USA decided to use it as a refer of the pseudoscience in their science and engineering indicators. The reason why is that so is because astrology does not have any evidence. Few astronomers tried to protect their point, but unfortunately their points of view wasn't good. There were few big examples of astrologists trying to defend their point. One of them is a statistical experiment of Michel Galkin, which later was named as a Mars effect. The point of this experiment was to prove that that people with the same time of birth work on the same type of works. But later on, scientists discovered that Michel Galkin used the wrong data in his experiment. This experiment wasn't taken. After that, scientific society decided to make a counterattack towards the astrology. First of all, they made an Forer experiment. Point of this experiment was to prove that prophecies made by astrology are too vague to be taken. In order to make such experiment, scientists took students and asked them to pass their personality tests, and they convinced students that they are going to analyze their personality based on those tests. But instead of giving them analysis, they gave them random phrases from astronomical. Most of the students agreed with the results of their personality tests. But scientific society didn't stop on that, and after that they started their biggest experiment, which was named as astrological twins. In order to disprove this point, scientists decided to took more than 200 couples of people which had difference in their birth time more than 4.8 minutes, and thus making them astrological twins. But in the result of the experiment, which is by the way still going, most of the couples have shown differences between them.